Welcome to the Soul Tribe Podcast. The Soul Tribe Podcast was created to help you navigate through the world of spirituality, wellness, and self-development in an easy, grounded, and relatable way. We break down everything from the Akashic records, manifesting, spirituality, and so much more. We want to help expand your boundaries and bring the spiritual world to you in a fun and easy way. Get ready to be inspired with tips, tools, and easy to digest information. Let's do this.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Soul Tribe Podcast. If this is your first time listening to us, thanks for giving us a chance, and we really hope that this episode and all the other episodes that we've created gives you what you're looking for and you need. We're hoping that we can reach many individuals that need a spiritual connection, a spiritual awakening. We're hoping to elevate consciousness, awareness, spirituality. We're also hoping for ourselves to find new tools, methods, beliefs, awareness, ideas, creativity, and so that's why we also started introducing other individuals into our podcast and for interviews. And so this episode goes very well with all that, our mission and all our thoughts and our goals. Tania had been one of the individuals I had reached out to do a podcast episode with, because I learned angelic healing from her, and I consider her, her tools and her classes to be amazing. I love them. I use them every day. And if I'm not doing an angelic healing on an individual, I'm probably doing it on myself, or I'm doing it for a family member at distance. But it's basically something I use every day ever since I learned it from her. I think she's an amazing individual. I totally appreciate how she put herself out there in the world to give people those classes. I know that for some people it's really hard to put yourself out there or to believe in yourself enough to go, this message I'm receiving or this information that I'm receiving is really something everyone else needs. And you need to be a pretty amazing person to do that, to push yourself to get your projects, your beliefs, your channeled information, whatever it is that you're receiving, to put it out in the world and share it with everybody. You have to be very secure in yourself and really believe in your abilities. And Tania's very aware and very conscious. The interview and the conversations we had with her were even better than I expected them to be. And also because she brings in her own life experience. She brings in, she has her humor and her personality. And it reminds me a lot of mine, very awake and high energy and ready to go and excited and somewhat humorous, right? So I feel like we all connected in the interview. We connected very well. And she's kind of like Lorna and I, where she just starts talking, keeps going. So it was nice to interview her, because you ask one thing and you end up talking about so many other different things, and it's so awakening and it's so much fun. So Tania speaks about obviously her classes, angelic healing, and she speaks about her own stories, her own path. But she also talks about something that I consider very important, and I wanted to make sure that the interview was concentrated a big portion on this. It's crystal children, indigo children that come into this world, that incarnate into this world and have abilities, right? They have a higher consciousness. They have abilities to feel energies, tap into, even be empathetic, feel whatever it is that this child has that's more awakened than the parents that are, bringing this child into the world. It's really hard, and if you're not on that path, it's really difficult to be a parent to a child that has an ability or an awakening that you don't perceive the same way as the child. So I definitely recommend this episode to aunts, uncles, grandparents, parents, anyone that's around even teachers. Tania said that teachers are contacting her to get help because they're dealing with children that are different now. So like anybody that's around a child that might have an ability, this episode is very useful in information. And Tania has also a Facebook group. She has about crystal children. She gives information on her YouTube channel. So if you're looking to get more information about that, at the end of the episode, we're going to give all her links and her groups and her accounts, and also linking it on bio. So if you go scroll to the bottom where the information of the episode is, you'll find all the links that Tania provided us with. But I hope you guys enjoy this episode, and I hope that it's useful, because it was so cool to talk to Tania. She's amazing, and we definitely want to have her on for another episode to talk about crystals and whatever else we decide is useful for you guys. And if there's any questions or anything you guys want us to ask her if we do another episode, go to our website and use the contact form and put the question through and say that you want to ask Tania that, and so we can add it to a possible future interview. But enjoy the interview, guys, and absorb the information and the amazing energy and all her willingness, because she's amazing. Okay, so today we're with Tania Magdalene. Am I pronouncing that right?
Magdalene.
Magdalene.
Yeah.
Okay. And can you just let us know a little bit of brief overview of who you are, what you do, where you live, or where you came from?
Okay. Where I came from, that's an interesting question. So my name's Tania Magdalene, and I created a business called the Academy of Ancient Magic as a platform for people that want to grow themselves spiritually through a range of courses and training that I create myself. I'm online. Oh, she says, trying to forgetting completely what the question was and going off on something else.
It's okay.
It's okay. So I create spiritual courses, and when I create my courses, I find that I am given sometimes unique perspectives on aspects of spirituality that maybe aren't out there in the general realm at the moment, and using that knowledge that I get, that comes down to me as a download, I create the training courses, and very often I don't know what's going to come up next, because it often is I'm guided to create whatever I create, and then I'll get the knowledge to create the courses. Where do I come from? I hope you can tell from my accent. I come from sunny England. It's not that sunny. Don't come to England in August. It always rains. Come in June. It's nice in June. But I feel very much that I'm a citizen of the world rather than just of one place. So the last 3 years I've been living in Austria, which, very interestingly enough, I found I have family connections to without knowing, and I've also have a little flatette in Turkey, which I bought on a whim, and found out that it was actually at a very sacred location, oddly enough. And I also spend time in Ireland because my husband has a little weeny house in Ireland, which is of course also a very spiritual place. So I spend a lot of time traveling around, but as I have 5 children, they're all grown up, so that kind of gives me the permission to do so. Was that all the questions?
Yeah. That's good. So you talked about how you're sent to create these different programs or teachings, right? And it's like almost like you get the information, so you don't know what's coming. But how do you know? Like, how did you learn to do that, or how did it come to you, or how did it begin, or how did you know why you had that ability?
Okay, so it's very interesting, because I believe we all have that ability, but for me, it's like, and it would be the same for you as well. It's like you get a good idea, and you think, well, that's a good idea, and then you keep getting the good idea, and then you think, well, what is this good idea that I keep getting? Let's think into this, and what I find is that I might get, well, I know we were talking a minute ago, but for example, I've created Angelic healing course, and about a year before I wrote it, I started to get what I would call this would be through my clairvoyance, but for any everybody has the ability to develop a clairvoyance. Oh, here I go off on a tangent. Go back to the subject, Tania.
It's okay. You can go on any tangent you want.
It's okay. And I was kept being shown four powerful archangels, Raphael, Michael, Uriel, and Gabriel, and I kept seeing them standing around, and it was like they were showing me, it was like a crystal dome they were standing in, and they were standing around uh, like a crystal bed with a person lying on it, and they were bringing down golden, it was like golden sparkly light, and they kept showing me this image. And at the time, and I know we discussed this before the call, but your listeners maybe even don't know this, but at the time, my lineage is, I'm obviously, my surname is Magdalene, and I have that surname because I'm very much connected with the priestesses, the mystery schools, and the priestesses of Isis. So the Magdalene, Mary Magdalene, was very much connected with those teachings, and I am affiliated, and I have past life experiences around that. So, but with the so with the lineage Magdalene, here I go off again. So the ancient mystery schools of the Isis, priestesses of Isis mystery school, work with what we call the divine feminine, and the divine feminine is the feminine energy is represented in our body as a silver color silver, and the gold energy in our body represents the masculine energy within our bodies. So within your body you have what we call lines of energetic force that come through your body. One's down your right hand side, and it's gold, and it's your masculine line of force, and your masculine line of force gives you the ability to create, and not to be creative, but to create something once you've got the idea. So to create things, to be physical, to be grounded into the now. And the left line of force, which is your feminine line of force, is your creations, your emotions, your psyche. And because the ways we are moving towards that, more towards the divine feminine, away from the patriarchal age that we've had, where the man rules and the man tells you what to do and the man tells you what to think, I kind of like went into a bit of a crisis with it, because I'm thinking, well, this is what I'm seeing is gold, and I'm not supposed to be working with gold because gold represents the masculine energy. I'm supposed to be working with silver, so I just decided to ignore them. And then,
Yeah.
and then they kept showing it to me and kept showing it to me, and I thought, what is this? And very often when spirit's trying to communicate something with you and they want you to notice, they'll keep showing it to you. And it's like you have a neighbour who's come round and you don't really want to talk to them, and they're standing in the corner of
That is a great example.
yeah, and they're standing in the corner of the room, and you just sort of like, oh yeah, so I'll speak to you later. And so they were there, and also at the time I was working with I had sort of spent maybe 8-10 years working very much with a very powerful spiritual modality, which I still work with. And as part of that, there was, once you get to a certain level of training, they ask that you just stick to that lineage of training. And so I was feeling this awful guilt process around it all, which is very, very indicative of having been brought up as a Roman Catholic, which I was. There's a lot of guilt attached to being a Roman Catholic, and if any of your listeners out there have been through the Roman Catholic Church, you'll know what I mean. And so I didn't want to do the wrong thing, and here I am talking about a million things at once as usual. And so what happened was I kind of like went into a moment of stillness. So rather than being in in a panic or a crisis, when I wasn't really able to think very clearly, I just kind of like went into a little bit of a meditation and sat with myself. And I thought, and I could have like, I'm quite connected with my guides, though I wouldn't say, oh, there's Bob in the corner has said this to me, or Joe in the corner said that to me. I know that when there's wisdom I'm getting, it's normally one of them's talking to me. And they said to me, you know, Tania, this has come about because of the spiritual growth that you've had up to now, and part of your training, your intensive training that you've done, has led to this. If you hadn't have done that, you wouldn't be being shown this, and this is something for you to create. And and so I thought, you know what, I'm going to listen and I'm going to do it. And I then sat down with the intent, and I received what I would call like a download. And because there's no time in those realms, there is, when they're downloading information from those realms, it's like an instant download. It's like you blink your eyes again, and then all of a sudden you've got all the information that you need to write. So there I was given what they were showing me was a very it was a very powerful procedure that uses golden angelic light. And they showed me that it was used back in the time of Atlantis, right back then, and that the knowledge had been forgotten, and that it was now time to bring that knowledge back. And because the angelic realm, it was now a lot easier for the angelic realm to connect with us than it has ever been, or certainly not for the last 13,000 years, or 12,000 years. But now, because humanity's shifting into this new golden age, well, we're now in it, but it will develop as time goes on. Oh, that's interesting. I've just had a click with that. We're in the golden age of Aquarius, and there I am talking about giving a download of golden light. Oh, isn't that funny? That's funny. Oh wow, there we go.
They're probably like on the other side.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. Yeah, okay. Okay, so that was obviously right then. So we're in the golden age of Aquarius, and here's the gold light. Hey.
Perfect. And I have to say, like, I'm obsessed with that healing procedure. I do it on myself at least once a week. I've done it to family members, and I've done it to people at a distance. I've done it to some listeners, because we did this like thing where I did 5 free, and they contacted me. So I tried it on people at a distance, and everyone I did it on, they totally felt it and they totally loved it. And I am obsessed with it.
You know what? It's so beautiful. And I think probably that creating something with angels, everybody, it doesn't matter whether you're religious or you're not religious, or whether you're spiritual, or whether you do Reiki or whatever, everybody loves angels. There's angels in the Quran, there's angels in the Bible, for me it was a really amazing way for people to make an instant connection, and to not feel that they were doing something that was beyond their comfort zone. And there was a very important exercise that I included in the course, or is included in the course, and it's where people get the opportunity to, through intent, to make a connection with their guardian angel, because we all have a guardian angel, and the guardian angel stays with us throughout our life. I mean, sometimes there's this fantastic meme I've seen on Facebook with the guardian, with the angel with a face, doing a sort of face palm, face down, and thinking, this is what my guardian angel looks like today. I'm sure we all have.
I've seen that.
They all have those moments. And anyway, what are we talking about? I've completely gone off track.
We were talking about how you created the course in the golden age of Aquarius. But so this thing, did you know when you were because I basically, it's safe to say that I'm a huge fan.
Okay, thank
so
you.
I did the thing. I've done all the classes you have. I've listened to every video I could find. But I think at one point I heard you talking about something about when you were young, that you would see something.
Yeah. So And this is very common today. In fact, it's very interesting that I'm talking about this now. This is very common today with with the crystal children who are born very much with a very open psyche. When I was very little, and as far back as I can remember, I used to have every night I would have, and this is going to sound really cheesy, but it really is absolutely very true. I used to have a black panther that would come through from the spirit realm, and she was female, and she would come and sit every single night on my feet. And I remember this back, my youngest memory, that's probably when I was about 2. And she would come and sit on my feet. And I can, even now, if I feel into that now, I can feel her weight on my feet as I slept. Um, and I didn't understand what I was experiencing. I didn't understand what it was. And, for a lot of children, especially, they get night visitors, or, I have a crystal child who tells me that every night there's a vortex opens up in the wall. It's like this spinning hole starts in the wall, and then it gets bigger and bigger, and then beings come through and talk to him or come and play in his bedroom, and he's really very comfortable with it. But for me, I guess I wasn't afraid when I was that 2, but as I got a little bit older, I used to see big black dogs around, and the big black dogs reminded me of my night visitor, and I began to get, because scared of the dogs, and I would hide behind my mum, and so what happened was then became scared of my nighttime visitor, and my mum couldn't. She doesn't. It's like my mum at the time, and this is no disrespect to my mum, but mums do the best they can as parents with the tools they've got available. So mum just put me down to me having a very vivid imagination. I do have a vivid imagination. She's absolutely right, but but that's exactly what I was seeing, and so I kind of shut myself down so that I wasn't afraid. And very interesting. I used to have like very high temperatures when I was little, and they never knew what was going on with me, and they would try to give me sugar in my milk so that I wouldn't have high temperatures at night. I mean, I don't know what that's got to do with bringing down your temperatures, but apparently that's what you do. So left me with a bit of a sugar crave as I grew up, but but what it was that my light body, because I was I'm one of the early crystal children. That's probably, you'll find your parents may well be as well, or one of your parents may well be. I was having what they call light body symptoms, so my energy field was sort of burning up, because I was trying to transmute so much density from the environment that I was living in. Not that there was anything wrong with my parents, but just the very basic nature of the physical reality that we were born into at that time, which was the 1960s, swinging 60s. That was that, we were almost at the sort of the humanity was at the deepest point of its darkness, if you like, before we came to be triggered back into the cycle of light that we're now in at the moment. And so I was experiencing those kind of symptoms of just horrendous high temperatures, and I was visualizing things. I could leave my body. I knew how to spin out of my body. I could go just like backwards out of my body and into strange realms. And I remember all of that. I remember it, and I kind of shut it all down when I was about 7, because I thought, well, I didn't think, you don't really think anything at the time, but I was afraid of it, so I didn't want to experience it anymore. And it's also very common for a lot of people that are born with the sort of psychic gifts, that they kind of close themselves down when they're about 7. And I kind of like my sort of life interests have always been, well, I used to always be, watch the haunted show, freak myself out with scary things. And I never was, because I knew there were things in the darkness, I was never able to sleep unless there was a light on outside my door on the landing. And it has taken me, and I'm now 53, and I reckon it's only took me till I was about 48 till I started on this journey. that yeah, that I could
Wow.
actually sleep without a light on, and I don't know if you remember as children, like sort of lying in bed and then putting your hand down by the side of the bed and thinking there might be something under the bed that's going to lick your hand or something like that. So I couldn't didn't
That's scary.
yeah. But when you kind of know there's things around, it's and you can't rationalize it, and it's kind of like it can be quite scary for people that don't really understand what's going on. And so yeah, I understand.
So, do you, I'm not like, obviously I don't have children yet, but my sister has a daughter, Aurora. But is this like a
Oh
more common thing, crystal children? Is this like a thing that's happening more and more now?
yeah, sure, yeah, sure. I mean, it's like where do I begin? Okay, so we've so the Earth runs in cycles. So we've been, I think, the last time we were in the age of Pisces. I think we're now into just we moved on December 2012 into the age of Aquarius, and those times and 2012, yeah, and in order for us to go back into that what we call golden age, because this is we're going back into a golden age, which means that the divine feminine becomes prominent. That doesn't mean that it's all about girl power, guys. You're involved too. It means about being that the divine feminine and the divine masculine are represented equally and honored equally. And what happened was that there was a shift in the crystal grid of the Earth. So around the Earth, we have something called, and the scientists call them ley lines. I call them the global grid matrix. So it's a grid of light lines that go around the Earth, and they create a shape. And for the new age of Aquarius to come into manifestation, the grid had to change. The grid shape had to change. Its frequency had to change. So when you have a shape, it emits a vibration, and that can be measured on a machine. But if the vibration needs to change, then something has to change about the shape. So what happened is there were these astrological alignments, events that happened, something called the Grand Cross alignment and Star of David activation. So there were all these cosmic um, events that happened which impacted the grid of the Earth, and it created a new shape crystal grid around the Earth, a 144 sided grid called the double pentadodecahedron or something complicated like that. And it was the Earth had to do that first. So that started in about, she says, when did that start? So that started in 1999 with the Grand Cross astrological alignment. And that had to happen first so that the humans or humanity or the people that were being born with a different energy template, if you like, or etheric body around themselves could be sustained on the earth when they got here. So there was a big sort of call out to the universe. Earth needs help, and they looked for volunteers for souls or beings that haven't been in physical incarnation here before. They they look for people who have incarnated before, to come back at this time to support humanity to lift out from the darkness that we had sort of descended into. And so the children that were born since 1999, all of them were born with a different energetic template around them. So if you like, they've got their own little crystal grid. And I refer to them, and it's not just me. Alexis Cartwright, who's one of my teachers, refers to them as crystal children, and it's a generic term, and it's referring to them purely because of their energetic template. But crystal children fall into different categories, and some people can be at some phases one type of crystal children, then you can be at another time in your life a different type, or you might be a combination of a couple of things. And you too, one of the reasons I did this interview is because Well, firstly, I don't really like talking about myself very much, so
We've
so
noticed.
I have to feel comfortable with who I'm talking to. But when I got the email, I feel very much that you two are very crystalline. So I kind of like I felt like you were part of my tribe. So I felt comfortable
Aw,
Oh,
talking
that's so
to you.
sweet.
that's amazing.
But what happened was that um, there's kind of been like a wave of volunteers, and there's an amazing book by somebody called Dolores Cannon. Actually, she's amazing, and I highly recommend much of her stuff. And she wrote a book called The Three Waves of Volunteers, and this very much aligns with what I feel and see and know. Is that kind of like sort of there was some souls sort of having a look around to see if it was the right time to come around, sort of be born around the 1920s, and a couple came at that time. But what was happening was that it was our grandparents were, yeah, my grandma was born in 1908, yeah. So they were being born in sort of three stages. So my grandma was born in like 19 whatever it was, and then my mother was born whenever 1940, and then I was born in 1960. And what happened was that a couple of us decided to do something like really hard, is that we would be born at a time when really the earth wasn't ready to support us, which is why, I described that, me as a child having these very strange physical symptoms that nobody knew what was going on for me. That's why I came here to hold a space so that when the earth shifted, I could birth children that could then be held in the light and on the earth. So I would bet that your mum is also one of the early crystal children as well. Who, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, my sister and I both like are
I
into
think
this
so.
stuff because mom is.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
okay, that's about right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would suspect, and you can tell me that I'm right or wrong, that mum really supports you in what you do. She doesn't have any judgment around it.
God, no,
No,
she
and
loves
she's
this.
like asking for us to try these new tools on her and
Oh, is
everything.
she? Oh, that's so
Yeah.
cool. That's so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, sure. And what's really amazing is that you know, I, these children are born with such wisdom, and they're sort of like they're born and they sort of talk about stuff as if they're sort of 50 years old. I'm also a music teacher, and there is a big connection between music and spirituality, which is for another conversation.
Yeah.
It's true though, yeah.
I've got to do a course on that as well, but that one's not coming up in the pipeline right yet. But um, and I have a lot of children that sort of come to me, and they're actually coming for far more than having a music lesson with me. So but they talk to me about the things that they see and experience, and and I they talk to me. I can have what I would call an adult conversation with the children, and they're sort of like so advanced in their thinking and very open in their thinking, and and it's such an honor for them to trust me, that they can express themselves to me and they feel safe, if you like. I have one of my pupils. She's so funny. She'll come in and she'll whisper if she doesn't want her mum to hear, and she say, we're pagans, she'll whisper it because she doesn't. It's something that she doesn't want to say out loud to other people in case, because her mum's told her not to sort of talk about it. That she just has to go along with what's happening at school, with whatever they're doing with church and things. And so it's so funny that she comes along and she'll whisper these things to me and tell me about her dreams and what happened in her dreams and this and that and. Anyway, what was the question again?
Wow, but that's so amazing that you're able to support them, because that is the reality right now. I think that a lot of parents aren't able to provide that space for their children, or even like adults. It doesn't have to be their parents. It could be like an uncle, an aunt, a grandmother, a grandfather. But that's hard, because that could really, I don't know if it can really stunt this power and this knowledge that they have, but that's so beautiful what you're doing, that you're able to just hold space for them.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, you must have noticed there's kind of like this wave, and doing something spiritual suddenly becoming quite normal. So I mean, Reiki is, like, I would say, one of the most well-known spiritual modalities throughout the world, and it's kind of like, I find it's becoming more and more accepted that somebody does Reiki, or they call it alternative medicine, or somebody might say, "Oh, do you know her? She does alternative stuff." And
Yeah.
and so I mean, we have so much more. We have magazines, spiritual magazines. The number of spiritual magazines has just grown and grown here. Spiritual sites. People with, like, they can learn online with me, and they have opportunity to sort of develop themselves, but not only to develop themselves, but they can also ask me questions and communicate with me, and so that they can be supported with that. And very interestingly, I, I know we have a question on this coming up, but I get quite a lot of teachers who actually take my Crystal Children course that I've written, because they say that they notice that there's a difference that with the children that they're teaching now than maybe the children that they were teaching 15 years ago. The children are talking about, having these psychic abilities, or, or they're talking about they can see spirit children in the classroom, or or somebody's, what we would call their imaginary friend, who generally isn't an imaginary friend, and who's actually a real person there. But if the adult could see them, they'd probably freak. So so it's
For sure.
so when teachers are experiencing children with these kind of, like, gifts, and they're talking about things on a different level to what the what's my words I'm trying to say here. So when the children are expressing things that they are from their psyche, for example, your crystal indigo child is normally very clairaudient and has telepathic abilities, and they can understand something without needing to hear it. So it's like they'll when a teacher's trying to teach something, and these children are often very they're a pain to teach if you're trying to teach them in the traditional way, and if you only know the traditional way, they kind of like will hear and understand a concept before you've even said it. And very often those type of children, they have a very developed throat chakra, very clairvoyant as well, but their particular gift is around their throats and their ear chakra, and this gift of clairaudience is that they don't feel the need to communicate, and they're often very slow to start talking when they're little, because they can hear it. It's like you think of the thought, and they can hear it, and so it's kind of like, well, why should I bother? Why do I bother speaking when I hear and understand everything that's been said before it's even been said, and so children can sometimes be diagnosed as having learning difficulties because they're slow to talk. I mean, my husband is one. I mean, he was born 63, I think. I've got it right, because I get it wrong all the time. It's dates don't really matter to me. But when he was a child, he was very super intelligent. He would be what you would today. He would be diagnosed as having something like ADHD, but kind of like he understood everything. So he was born with that gift as well, and he got taken to see the school psychologist, and the psychologist tried to give him some, or no, it was a doctor actually. The doctor tried to give him some, what we would call our version of Ritalin today, right back then in the 1960s. And because he was very clued up, he knew that the tablets weren't what the issue was, and so he'd put it in his mouth, and then when his mum wasn't looking, and then take it out of his mouth. And he was about 8 years old at this time, so he knew that, kind of like having that sort of second sense at that age. And eventually he got taken to a psychologist because he was just bored at class, and the psychologist, although he was being diagnosed as having behavioural problems, and the psychologist said, "There's nothing wrong with your child. He's just bored of learning. He's just bored at school. Put him up. Put him up a year." and he got moved up a year at school, and left school at I think 15 and got a postgraduate scholarship, organ scholarship to Liverpool.
Wow.
And he hadn't finished his schooling, and so he had to do, like, we have something called A levels here. He had to go and do all his so they couldn't give him his degree because he hadn't got the kind of like school qualifications, and he hang on, train of thought. So he had to do his like school qualifications through the post while he was doing a postgraduate diploma and his degree at the same time. And you know,
oh my god,
yeah,
that's ridiculous.
yeah,
it's like bureaucratic
sure,
stuff.
but it just goes to show, you know, there were those of us around at that time about what were being completely misunderstood or misdiagnosed, and so, but the kind of knowledge of that really wasn't around. So parents just did what the best they thought that they could for their children. And today it's wonderful that, you know, people are very much more open about well, paganism, very interestingly, paganism, or, you know, people are interested in tarot readings, you know, and even a show that I do not like watching, what's that one, where they go and find a haunted house and they put themselves through being in the dark in a haunted house. Yeah, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Yeah,
that would scare me. I couldn't do that. I wouldn't do it, but I watch it.
Doesn't it frighten you? Watching them being frightened, it's like,
oh my god, yes. Maybe it'll like show up next to me on the couch.
Yeah, sure. You know, but it's triggering an interest in that there's something else out there, and so we've gone from really being, you know, sort of 1950s, 60s, where really there wasn't nothing much around. Maybe there was a Romany gypsy at a fair telling your fortune, or she might have had a crystal ball, to suddenly it being sort of mainstream, and you know, we're safe to do it. We're safe to do it, and that's kind of like the point. And that's why, you know, I feel it's so amazing that there are parents who, you know, rather than sort of take their child to the psychologist to be diagnosed with something, you know, there's a couple of really good Facebook pages, which there's my one, which is Crystal Children, and there's another one called Indigo Children, and another one called something else, which I can't remember. Please forgive me. I'm sorry.
What's the difference between like an indigo child and a crystal child?
Okay, so it's okay. So I put them in three categories. So you're all crystal children, and I just use that term. And now other people have other terms as well for, you know, some people call them rainbow children. I don't think I've heard. Have you heard rainbow children, crystal children, star children, indigo children? I don't think. Have you guys heard of another terminology for a kind of description?
I've heard rainbow, but indigo and crystal.
Yeah, so I kind of like would more call it a rainbow child, a pure crystal child. So, so you're all crystal children under my terminology, because when I look at you, I would see a crystalline energetic template, and so there are three types. So there's what I would call crystal star children, crystal indigo children, and crystal children, just purely crystals. And so, but you might recognize, I'll sort of explain a bit about each, and then you might recognize aspects of yourself from each, which is okay. And you might find that you align more with one rather than with the other. But if you're a crystal star child, you can often seem disinterested in socializing, and they can appear like they're sort of disconnected from the world around them, and they're really, really happy in their own little world, and they don't need to socialize with other children. And I have a son like this, and I remember being,
that was me, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely
very happy just to play by themselves, and you know, really not bothered about going and mixing with friends. But you know, and they can be emotionally sensitive, and so they need to be supported by a loving and unconditional caregiver, because they can often experience they can seem withdrawn, and they can be sensitive to things around them, so they can sometimes seem quite fearful about things, but they're very inquisitive, and they're very intelligent, and they often are stimulated by the search for knowledge, and they seem to hold a special interest in space and the universe. And you might find them sort of daydreaming, looking at the stars, and asking things like, where do I come from and where is my home? And these children are very open in their third eye chakra, and are quite clairvoyant. And they have this intuitively heightened level of sort of sensory perception, and often begin channeling at a very early age, though they might not know that that's what it is. They're kind of like getting information in, and it's just like they've had a good idea. But so that would be your crystal star children. They're quite sort of, you can be one or the other, or you don't, and you can be a mix of both, and you kind of been like that when you're little, and now you're not like that now. So that would be your crystal star child, whereas your crystal indigo child, and it kind of refers to those born with psychic gifts, especially with regards to clairaudient and telepathic abilities. And as I said, these children, they use their throat and third eye chakra in a quite a unique way, and it creates or opens different levels of intellectual perception and awareness. And they can be stubborn, but they can also be sensitive, loving, courageous, and very unique in nature. And the reason they're normally stubborn is because that they get a sense of what's right, and they also kind of like, if you ask them to do things and they don't see a reason for it, they'll say, well, I'm not doing that because I don't want to, and there can be no reasoning with them. But they kind of like, they just, I don't need to do that. I don't need to know that. They very much know their own minds, and that's because they've got this great sense of self, and a great sense of that they know what's right for them. And these children often will start showing or be talking about what they can see psychically from quite a young age. So I'm going to refer to my son here. He started talking about past lives, actually, very interestingly enough, and would often tell me when he was little that his name was something else, and his name was, oh, I can't remember. His name was Steve or something, Stephen, and he worked with horses. And then he would talk to me about life in between worlds. And he tells me, and very interestingly enough, I then went on to read an amazing book called Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss.
Oh my God, I love that book.
Yeah, I went on to read that, and it kind of like was my confirmation for everything my son was telling me. And he would tell me that, when he goes in between worlds in life, that he meets with the same group of people, and one's called Sam and one was called Bob or something or another. And he said, we all get together and this is what we do. And I was like, oh, really? Right. But there was no element. He'd never, for him to be able to say that to me, there was no aspect of anything that had happened in his life for him to suddenly know that and start talking about it. So when I know that children are talking about concepts which I know they haven't been exposed to, and for example, somebody brought up in a very strict religious household wouldn't necessarily have a concept of seeing animals in spirit, or will but my son, he's very, very connected to the elemental realms, and so his gift particularly is he connects with those realms. So we would have a gargoyle that would hop along the fence with us as we were going along, and he wouldn't know that it was a gargoyle. He would have not heard the word gargoyle, but he would tell me there's a gargoyle. Wow. I say, how do you know that word? Where does that come from? And so it was very much a trigger for me to go and find out what he was talking about. So your children, and if there's any of you listening out there have got children, are very much when they start talking about these kind of things that they see, it's really interesting to listen to them, and you'll find that it very much triggers you as a parent to look at ways that you can support them. And very often that's, parents go off and they go and do a Reiki course or an angelic healing course or whatever course, or they'll get into meditation, and because they're feeling the need to support their children and what they're saying, and these children are not lying, and that's what was really obvious when I work with the crystal children, is that they're not lying, they're actually telling the truth. And so it's been quite interesting. So your indigo child, and there we go, I've diverted off topic yet again.
I'm just gonna come in and say something, because I don't know if it was mom, it was told to our mom or to Lucia directly that she was an indigo child, and we had no, like, I'm just learning what it is now.
Okay,
And everything you've
It was
described
it was
sounds
grandma that said it to
Lucia's
me.
routine.
Grandma came to me and said, "You're an indigo child, and you need to make sure that you take care of this and this and that." And I was just like, "What?"
okay, yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite common for indigo children to be sort of diagnosed with what they call it, attention, and I don't know if they have the word in
That was
the
Oh
Lucia.
yes, I was diagnosed with that. They wanted to give me Prozac, and my mom said no. They had to they put me in like a special class
They put you in
because
special ed, right?
yeah, they put me in special ed because I couldn't learn like the other kids.
yeah, yeah, sure.
But no, it was like a really good. I was lucky because I had a really good teacher whom I loved her, and she was very supportive. But I took me many years of my life to realize that it's because I have like the broader perspective. Like what normal person sees is like this, and I see much more openly. So it took me longer to process things than everyone else around me. But
Yeah.
of course, when I was young, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. And really those words weren't, yeah, sure. You, how would you know for yourself? You wouldn't, would you? And, and very interestingly, I've been a teacher now for a long time. I think when I was about 26, I was working in a school with a child who very obviously had learning difficulties, well, diagnosed by the school as learning difficulties. She could and I adapt my teaching styles to how a child learns, but, she was finding it hard. And so the word dyslexia was sort of around at that time. And I remember going to see the head teacher of the school, who said, and I said, has this child been diagnosed with dyslexia or anything like that? And she stood in front of me, put her finger at me and said, that is a woman's own comment. How dare you make that comment in this school? And that was like not that long ago. So and very often these indigo children do have issues with around dyslexia, um, and can be
Yeah.
diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. Yeah, sure. Okay. If you're bored to death, who wants to sit and listen to stuff?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's probably aspects of all of us in that, where we've got sort of been at school and you've thought to yourself, why do I need to know x equals y over squared over this? And what I remember I used to say to my teacher, my maths teacher used to hate me because I was like, I say, but what does it mean? What does it mean? It's like, what does it mean? And in the end, she used to stop answering my questions because it was, so she would just ignore me. So I ended up hating maths. But there you go. But
Yeah.
so so Crystal,
And then the
Yeah.
crystal, right?
yeah, yes, okay. So your indigo children are very, because of their telepathy, that listening to dolphin and whale sounds has a very soothing effect on crystal children. Very much reconnects them with that kind of with the womb of the
That's
earth.
so funny that you're saying that, because the first thing I managed to do when I had a little bit of liberty when I got older was get a library card, and I would ask my mom to drive me to the library, and I would get out books about telepathy. And then when I got older, I became a dolphin trainer.
No, you're a dolphin trainer. Wow, that's just amazing. Oh
Well,
wow.
I quit because I thought it was really bad. It was like the animals in captivity, and I said I can't be a part of it. But I was attracted to the
Yeah,
dolphins.
sure, sure. And they were attracted to you as well, very much.
Yeah.
And you were there protecting them. So that's so cool. Oh wow, amazing. So 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 for the crystal children, and we'll just call them crystal children. So while the star and the indigo children are able to, attune to the knowledge and resources of the earth and cosmos, so they attune to it through their psyche, through the psyche. So your star child will be using the third eye, and your indigo child will be using the third eye and the throat chakra, but they tune into it. The crystal children already hold these resources within them, and that's because they're born with the sort of, we're in what we call the fifth dimension at the moment, and that fifth dimensional template is imprinted within their sort of DNA and etheric body, and they're very much light bearers. So you're all light bearers, but they are light bearers, and they hold pure energy and are very, very honest and are compelled to seek the truth, and they know when there's a lie. And it's very interesting because if you see a crystal child lying, they find it very difficult to lie. It's like one of my children tells me a lie, and I said, that's just the worst lie ever. They just can't. It's like they're so uncomfortable with it if they feel that they need to do that, because they're essentially at the core of them is that they're compelled to seek the truth, and they don't hide their true feelings in order to protect those around them or to sort of accommodate other people. They're very sensitive to people who are sort of have suppressed or have negative energy, or because what happens is with their energy body, when you're holding a lot of light within your body, and this happens with a lot of light workers, is that when you go into, say, you go into I don't know, like a drug den, let's do a real worst case scenario, and there's a lot of dark energy in there, and it's very sort of stuffy, and there's not much light of all aspects in the room. What happens is that the energy body of the light, so it's attracted, the darkness is attracted to the light, as moths are attracted to light. So that negative energy then comes into their energy field, where their energy field, which is like burning, it's like a light furnace, then transmutes it away. But in the process of doing that, it can then be very depleting for them. So if you're around too much negativity and you're a young child or even an adult trying to hold light for other people, it can have real impacts upon you. So, which is why doing things like, I don't know, like doing an angelic healing on yourself, or working with essential oils, very interesting. Essential oils are amazing. Whether you're working with crystal healing or Reiki or whatever you're using, it can really support you, and it's really helpful to support you. And if you're a parent of these children with these amazing gifts, it's really important for you to keep the vibration of the home environment high, and that can be something really simple as making sure it's a clean environment to be in, making sure there's not too much old clutter around. So if you've been hanging on to grandma's old socks for the last 50 years because they might come in handy, really grandma just wants you to give them to the charity shop and just remove that old energy out of the home. And so keeping your home environment clear and light, and doing lovely things like going crystal shopping, which is my absolute favorite.
I have to blame you for that because I'm spending money on crystals because of you.
I know.
She has so many now, it's ridiculous.
Aren't they just so beautiful? They are just, yeah. I really can't believe you can have enough crystals. That's what I keep saying. So like, I have crystal jewelry, I have tumbled stones, I have my crystal skull called Horace that I work with, and I have big geodes and a big crystal point, who's my master crystal, and so I have that all around the home. So it's
we'll have to do a whole episode on crystals, I think, because I'm super interested in that too.
Sure. Crystals they're amazing. So I mean,
talking about like that, the like keeping the house clean and the vibration up. I know my daughter doesn't speak yet, she's almost 3, but she also has the language barrier issue with where she hears Dutch, Spanish, and English every day. So I don't know if it's that, but I always like cleanse the house, and under her bed I change up the crystals, and I put like a crystal grid under her bed.
Cool.
So I think that helps it. Also, she checks the bed under and goes, rocks.
Oh, bless her.
Yes.
Yeah. So often when we at nighttime, when we're going to sleep, we often release a lot at nighttime, and a smoky quartz is a really good crystal to put under your bed because it transmutes any sort of negative energy. And by negative energy, I don't mean there's a ghosty in the room going at your child at night. What I mean by that is that it or for us as adults as well, what I mean is that you're going into dream time and you're astral traveling, and you're releasing stuff that's held within your emotional body. So it's an energetic release rather than some black shadow coming out of your body. It's an energetic release, and the smoky quartz is absolutely amazing from that. If you want a really good protector stone, so malachite is a lovely beautiful green. I've got an absolutely massive one that when I know I'm going to meet the outlaws, I put the sorry I put this big, I've got this massive, I might wear it in one of my training videos actually. I've got this massive green malachite stone that I wear around. It's it's like a, what do you call it? Like you've got a Knights Templar plate around your heart, so it goes over my heart, but
Oh my God.
it deflects. So it's a real deflect. It's a deflect. So anything that tries to come towards, if there's people having an argument in the next room, and you're being impacted by the energy, the malachite crystal will go and deflect it back out again. So really good one.
I love that.
Also, a lot of,
That's funny because I'm wearing a necklace right now that's made of that.
oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah.
lucky you. Yeah, so I love it.
Gosh.
Yeah, it works with the heart, but and it also is a great deflector. So it helps if you're an energy worker. It's an absolutely brilliant stone, a brilliant stone, because it really supports you to kind of like not be too impacted by what's happening during, like I say, if you have a healing session with somebody.
What do you like? I don't know if you know anything about Akashic records, but what would you say for us, like for Lucy and I, who open up other people's Akashic records? What would be like a good crystal for that, for us to have around us?
to what, to connect with the Akashic records?
Yeah, I think maybe for connection and also for protection, maybe.
Okay, so really good. A connection stone is labradorite. Labradorite. It's the crystal for.
It's a blue one, right?
Yeah, it's bluey. It's kind of like got bits to tint, little. It's like reflects different colours. It's sort of bluey, greeny, sort of goldy. It's very good for when you're making high connections, high energetic connections. Also moldavite, not yeah, moldavite. That's the Holy Grail stone. Moldavite's quite expensive, but again, it's a very high, when you're trying to access higher knowledge. It's a very good one for helping with that connection. There you go. There's two for you, ladies. If you haven't got them,
Okay.
off you go shopping again.
Thanks. You're giving me a list of more things to buy.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Okay, so that's great. And then, so the information you're giving about the crystal children, like, I'm really concerned because my child doesn't speak yet, but she's eventually going to be going to like school and she's going to have to properly learn. Is there any advice you can give parents that have a crystal child that maybe they're having issues at school? Is there something the parent can do from their side?
You mean in what respect? In what respect?
Like to help support them. Maybe they're having difficulties at school, or is there something that you found that helps from the parent side to maybe speak to the child about something or do something? I don't know.
I think the children are very sensitive to the adults around them, and they're also very good judges of character. What's the word? When you judge someone's character, they're very good, and so very interesting. I work with a little crystal child in the States, and she will come home from school and she'll say, I had to see the social worker today, and I don't like her energy, or she'll use like, I don't like her, but she won't know why. And when mum has then gone in to meet like the various members of staff and on like a parents' evening, mum has understood why the child has reflected, has said that. And my advice around all of that is that you can, if you listen, it's really important that when they come home and they talk about what seems to be just little things to you, to them, they're big things. So it's just so my advice is don't brush off what they say, ask them to explain what they mean, because very often, like your 3-year-old, she'll find it hard to put into words what she's actually experiencing, and sometimes and if you've got an understanding of them and what their gifts are and what you can expect them to be triggered by, you can help support them with that at home. And really, as I said, really important is that home is very clear, so that they can come home and they can do their release if they need to at home. And I know some of the parents will say that their child will come home from school and will just seem to be being badly behaved, but when they sort of dig more into it, it's the child's becoming sensorily overwhelmed at school with so many people, and sort of huge numbers of children in a class and being kept in a confined space all day long, and not being allowed to get out. Fresh air, being out in the elements is absolutely vital and important for all of us, and really with your children. It breaks my heart today to see so many children just don't go out and play anymore. When I was a child, I spent days out playing in the fields and meeting people and making camps and climbing trees, and and now where I live now, there's young children around here, yeah, sure, but I never see them. They're inside with the TV on or on the computer or gaming, and spending time on those kind of gadgets just really closes them down. So yeah, and you've got then all the electromagnetic frequencies that come off those gadgets, and get your children out into the air. If they're overwhelmed at school, speak to them, listen to what they've got to say. Keep your home environment clear. Go and do some spiritual training yourself to see if there's something that you can do additionally to help support them. And and it's really important that you avoid trigger areas for them. So just me personally, and this is me as an adult, I find hospitals very difficult to go into. I find busy trains, the tube in London is just a real no-go. And to help myself, and even shopping it is too busy out in the shops. That can be like energetically overwhelmed. Now I know this is happening to me, so I know how to deal with it, and I'll go out shopping with sunglasses on, like as if I'm Sophia Loren or something, I'm in Walmart with big shades on, and I have headphones on, and I've got music, like meditation music, and playing. Yeah, the whole works. But
the whole works.
But some of my parents will do that. They'll with their children, they'll take them out and they'll have their special they call them like their special, what, you've got your special glasses on, sunshades on today, and then they'll have headphones. They'll take them out with headphones because they get overwhelmed. Just even like going into a public toilet and somebody putting on the hand dryer. If you're very clairaudient, putting on the hand dryer is such a harsh noise that one of my mums couldn't take her child into the toilet because of that noise disturbance in her, and that unbalanced and unsettled her. And so connecting with nature is a really good way to help your children ground, because the crystal children are very much they live between two worlds all the time. And the important thing for them is to actually ground into this reality and ground their spiritual gifts into this reality. And it's something they find very hard to do, because there's aspects of our physical reality that are really not very nice to be in and around. So it's about learning to grow with your talents. And it's a really a general, those are really quite general things, but to really help, I have a cat. Cats are amazing for transmuting negativity. So if you have a child who gets really stressed at school or in physical environments, if you can do it, cats are really beautiful. So you stroke them, and what happens is they then use their little paws and they pad on the earth, and then they transmute all that negativity into the earth. So, and they're very, very good to calm children down emotionally as well. So whether that's a cat or a dog, they're wonderful. And I know that's not always possible. Maybe go for the smaller range. Start with a hamster or something.
A hamster, yeah.
Oh dear.
Oh, that's cute.
Okay.
We have like more questions we were planning to ask you, but we've already took up a lot of your time. So maybe one day soon we can just do another interview with you if you're willing to.
I'd love to. No worries. Because here it's I've got Austrian time still. I've got Austrian time still on my computer, so it's telling me it's 8:21 where you are.
Yes, that's correct.
It's 7:21 here, and it's nearly wine o'clock.
Yeah. I was actually telling my sister, I'm like, oh, if she were around where we are, I would totally be like, let's go get a glass of wine and discuss everything spiritual under the stars.
Sure.
That's amazing.
And if you're on a spiritual journey and you don't worry about drinking wine. If you want to drink wine, you drink wine. And that's what I say to what I find with everything is that as you grow spiritually, is that the things that you no longer need in your life kind of like shift away from you. So your friends might change,
Yeah.
but it's very interesting. You know, somebody said this to me. You know, you don't necessarily say if you smoke, you don't necessarily give up smoking. Smoking gives you up. It's like you change. So
Yeah.
my eating habits have changed. And I'm going to tell you this is a really true story. So as my psyche has kind of like really grown stronger, I made a conscious effort. I thought I'm not going, just because I'm spiritual, I'm not going to become a vegan, and I'm not having people tell me, this is me, I'm not going to have people tell me that I have to become a vegan because I'm spiritual. That if I want to, I will. Anyway, of course, spirit must have had other ideas for me, because I happen to be in what is called Asda here. It's Walmart, and I walked over to the like the fresh meat counter, and then all of a sudden there was like rows of chickens, like all dead chickens to buy, and they all started talking. I could hear them. I could actually hear the chicken. And I thought, I can't eat a chicken ever again. I could hear them talking.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. So that was me and chicken done. I couldn't.
No more chicken.
Yeah. So there
I
you go.
don't eat I haven't had red meat in I think it's 9 years or 10 years now. Because it's helped me channel more information, but also I kind of felt like I was done with it,
Yeah. That's there
and I
you
never
go. There
touched
you
it
go.
again.
Yeah, sure. Isn't it interesting? Yeah. See, I can't watch blood coming out of meat. That's just like I just got blood coming out. That's it. No, but yeah,
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
chickens. That was it. Thanks very much. I got the hint. But if you eat chicken, that you help yourself, that's fine by me. You know, everybody's
Yeah,
turn is different. Yeah.
we're all humans, right? Like we're not perfect. We're not like being spiritual doesn't mean you never make a mistake or you never do things a different way than anybody else. Like you live your truth, and if that means you drink alcohol or that you eat meat, that's okay too, right?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I quite agree. You know, and I have to say that I have a spiritual teacher who I'd put on a bit of a pedestal because she was amazing, and I thought, wow, she's amazing. She is a very enlightened being. And then she was telling us one day, where I did a training course with her, that she was sat on the balcony the previous night having a glass of red wine and smoking a cigar. You couldn't have heard a pin drop in the classroom, where everybody was thinking like, oh, it mustn't go into judgment here, mustn't go into judgment here. But I
Yeah.
thought, good on you, because I was smoking cigarettes at the time. So I thought, that's cool. That's two of us so cool here then.
Yeah, it's like we're spiritual beings having a human experience. We also
Absolutely.
have to be
Yeah,
human.
sure. And you have to experience those things, and you have to make mistakes. Otherwise, if you don't make mistakes, how you ever learn anything, huh?
Yeah.
Exactly.
The other thing I can't be around is like drunkenness. That's like low energy for me though.
Yeah,
That bothers me.
yeah. I get that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we wanted to finish off with a really funny question. If you were dumped on a deserted island and you could only take 3 crystals with you,
Right.
which 3 crystals are you bringing? You can't shop for any after that. That's it. These are your 3 crystals
Oh
forever.
well, if
So which
I'm
ones
on
are
a
you
desert
taking?
island, the sand works like crystal anyway, so I'll be fine. Okay,
Okay.
okay. So which three crystals will I take? Well, the first one I would take is the master crystal, which is clear quartz, and clear quartz holds the spectrum. Oh, is this going to be a quick answer, Tanya? I'm asking myself. Okay, I'll make it quick. So it would be clear quartz. Clear quartz is the master crystals, and it holds the total rainbow spectrum inside it. So if you shine a light into a clear quartz crystal, you'll see all the rainbow spectrum in it. So it's supporting absolutely every chakra within your body with its color vibrations. It's my favorite crystal in the whole wide world. My second crystal, I would take, would be my rose quartz, and I have an absolutely beautiful polished rose quartz in the shape of a heart, and whenever I connect with that, I feel the vibration of love, and it kind of like, I recommend, if you're in a relationship with somebody, well, not even, you don't have to be in a relationship with somebody, you can just be in love with your teddy bear in your bed if you like, but to have rose quartz next to the bed, because it's really beautiful, brings in the vibration of love, and so it's one of my favorites. It's also so pretty to look at. And then the third one I would bring would be a lacy blue agate, because lacy blue agate brings connects with the vibration of Mother Mary. And Mother Mary has been somebody that I have felt a very special connection with since I was a very young child, since I was sat in Roman Catholic churches and the priest was going on about I don't know what in Latin, and I would just look at Mother Mary and I'd go and sit next to her, because they do little altars to Mother Mary in the Catholic churches, and I would go and sit next to her and talk to her, and I felt like she always listened to me. So I have a very special connection with her. And in fact, I often feel her energy around, and I kind of like I get when the blue light comes into my room, I kind of like feel it's connected with her energy. So that's why I bring that one.
That's beautiful. I love that.
There you go.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's so funny. Whenever I have to do like a reading for somebody, I always think to myself, I don't know what I'm going to say, you know. And then I start talking, and then an hour later, I've still been talking.
It's channeling information, right?
It's having faith and trust in you. You know, that's my wounding is around faith and trust. So
me too. I think. Yeah.
Okay, it's been wonderful to talk to you, girls.
Oh my God, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for letting us interview and pick your brain. And yeah, we want to have you back on. Maybe we can do a whole episode about crystals.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That'd be amazing.
Yes, we could do. That would be lovely. It's really nice to talk to you. And I think what you're doing is wonderful. And my heart's with you.
Thank you, Tania. We hope you all enjoyed that episode with Tania Magdalene. She is amazing, and we are so grateful that she took the time to come on to our podcast and talk about all these amazing topics. I, for one, had a really good time and laughed quite a lot with her. She's very, very, very funny. But as well, learned a lot. Like, I didn't know much about crystal children. I knew a little bit about it, but she really cleared up and made it very, very clear what each of them were and what she teaches and what she's about. And I think she's an example of someone that's really followed her heart and followed the messages that have come to her and just built a life around that and, you know, her values and everything. So we hope you have a really good week and hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks, guys.